All right, welcome everyone to episode 4 of the Ninja Wealth Exchange. So, today's episode, we're going to talk about real estate investing, right? All the different strategies that you can use to get started in real estate investing. So, in the past couple episodes, if you guys have been keeping up, we started episode 2 talking about what we do as licensed realtors. And then episode 3, we talked about our other profession as licensed loan officers. So now we're going to complete the trifecta that Johnny and I are experienced in, which is also the real estate investing side of things here. So if you've ever thought about real estate investing, you've ever been curious about it, right? Maybe for you, all you've ever thought about real estate investing was toilets and tenants and headaches, and not for you, right? So that's as far as you went. But there's actually quite a lot to it. So we're going to start off by asking a question here, right? Why should somebody invest in real estate? So, Johnny, you want to help introduce yourself and answer that question?
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Johnny Vang. Of course, we're one of the ninjas here in the Wealth Exchange, the Ninja Wealth Exchange, episode 4. We're going to be going over some of these things, and why real estate, right? Why invest in real estate? There's so many different things you can invest in, from golds to like minerals to, I mean, you name it. So why real estate? I think and stocks, right? So my thoughts is at least from my experience, everyone that I know of that has millions of dollars or billions of dollars, or anybody that I've worked with in my past, right, with that kind of money, um, a lot of them have real estate, right? And for many different reasons, right? For many different reasons. It may not have been the one thing that, caused them to become a millionaire, but everyone's got real estate. And my thoughts is that um it's there's a few different things about it, right? One thing is tangible, right? Another is it hedges against inflation, which means as inflation increases, the value of your homes also increases. And historically, I feel like this is just my personal take, right? My personal opinion, but I feel like it's definitely one of the safest historically, right? In all my history of living that I've done real estate, um the values like held over a long period of time always goes up. There's really no like you're not going to see real estate just all of a sudden not be worth anything unless you're really not taking care of the property itself, right? In addition to that, you can highly leverage it, which I think is super significant in comparison to everything else. Like with stocks, you can only leverage maybe, I don't know, 50%. You can't really leverage much more than that. But with real estate, dude, you can leverage if you're doing an investment property, you can leverage what is it? Somewhere between 70 to 85%, right? On a single family rental. And that's a huge leverage, right? You can take a little bit of money and purchase something significant, which will grow over a percentage of the whole entire value of the home. And then you have cash flow, right? Cash flow is huge. Um, you get rental income, you get appreciation, you get tax benefits. There's so many different things. I think the only difficult part about real estate is that um, it's not liquid, right? So anytime you need money, you have to get it in the form of a loan or you have to sell the property and it takes time, right? Before you can actually liquidate the item. But to be honest, right? I think it's phenomenal in comparison to everything else. Is it hard to manage rentals? Yeah, sometimes. Like, does like a lot of I've never done an eviction before, but I know a lot of landlords that have. And when you're doing evictions, it's tough. And then there's also, market cycles that you have to deal with, and of course, upfront capital. So when you're buying something that's $100,000, you might need, $20,000. And if you don't have it, it might make things difficult. Although there are ways around all that. And I think that we can definitely dive into it a little bit more as we go on.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, um, you mentioned a couple things I just want to touch on, right? Real estate
Mhm.
has its tangible asset. It has value. Even if your home were to burn down, the land that it sits on has value still, right? So you can, there's and real estate, I don't know if you mentioned real estate has created so many millionaires in the US, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so, and then of course the leveraging part. I mean, there are some lenders out there that will allow you to take over 100% leverage on your real estate. Of course, it's going to come with a very heavy
Rate.
rate, a very high interest rate. But if you really do want that money, you will be able to access that. So we do have a whole lot to talk about in this episode. So, trying to keep it moving along here. You mentioned taxes, right? The
Mhm.
the benefit of taxes for real estate investing. There's so many there as well. But now let's get into the different strategies, right? It's going to be a lot and a lot to talk about. I think we have got 8 different types of strategies here that you could implement. So we're just going to go kind of high level to begin with. And if there's any specific topic, strategy that you guys want us to do a future episode and dive deeper into on how to do it, how to fund it, things like that, or bring in an expert who does it and is great at what they do, definitely let us know so we can bring that expert in. So, the very first thing that usually a lot of people think about when they think about real estate investing is, of course, HGTV, right? Flip or flop, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. You're laughing over there. So, right, everybody thinks real estate investing is easy. They want to see Chip and Joanna, or who's
Mhm.
the other guy, right? Tarek, right? Tarek and his wife, right? Ex-wife. But anyway, they want to test. Is it that easy to flip a house? Johnny, you flipped a house before, right? Is it
Yeah.
easy?
Yeah, no. It is definitely not easy to flip a house. I think, if you become once you become very experienced, it makes it easier, but it is almost never easy to flip a house. There's so much that you got to do, so much work involved, so much strategy involved. Of course, when you go in, like like most flippers, when you take a look at it, when you go in, you make the profit on the front end, right? Whatever you can buy it for and know what you're going to be able to sell it for, you got to run your numbers accordingly. And when you do that, the thing is, nothing worth doing is usually easy to do, right? So if you're working on flipping, I think that you definitely should, like, can you make really good profit? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think I've made, like, my first flip. I still own it today, but the value that I put in it, like, I think I fixed it for 180,000 and it's worth well over 300,000 right now. And we're just renting it out and, making money on it. So it's
Mhm.
definitely worth the efforts, but it is not easy. Like, and it takes a ton of time. And
Yeah.
if you want your spouse involved, man, you're gonna get into a ton of arguments, because I definitely did.
All
It's a good thing
right.
we have a good relationship.
We don't need to go down that. But I mean, if you still hold it, then technically it's not a true flip, though, right?
Correct, correct. If I would have sold it, I would have made, like a good 80,000 or something like that. So it would have been
Okay.
worth it.
All right. So what you actually did, which we should mention, what you actually did is known as a BRRRR, right? A fancy
Correct.
acronym that people came up with. BRRRR is BRRRR, right? I think 4 R's. So you buy it, you renovate it, you what do you rent it out, and then you refi it, right? And then you repeat.
Mhm.
So you rinse and repeat. So this is more of a kind of a hybrid kind of deal where you're getting a property that needs a lot of work at a really good price. You're gonna put in the sweat equity, fix it up, make it look nice, right? And then that way you can rent it out for a good amount. And then once you get that renter in, you can go to a person like me or Johnny and say, hey, you know what? I
Mhm.
got this house, right? It's got a lot of equity that I put my sweat equity into. I want to get my money back out so that I can go buy some more. So that's the refi part. And then if we check the numbers, okay, yep, looks like your rents are going to cover your mortgage that you're going to pull out, right? So it's basically a cash out refi is another term. And as long as the numbers work out, you can pull out all the money, pay back all your expenses, right? Like your contractor, materials, credit cards, whatever you use to acquire that property, to do the rehab. And then hopefully, if you did it right, you have money left over. You have equity left
Mhm.
over still, significant chunk, and then you can use that to go buy a new property, rinse and repeat, right? So that's a little bit more, not quite like a flip, but traditional flip, you're going to buy low, right? The name of the game is to buy low and then fix it up nicely and then sell it, right?
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
me, I personally don't do any flips. I've never done one myself because I have issues with contractors, trust issues that contractors are going to execute on time. um
Dude, it's hard, man.
it is
It's
tough.
hard.
It is tough,
Yeah.
right? I probably end up doing everything myself and then go crazy. Um, but yeah, it's tough. I do work with a lot of flippers though. So I have a lot of flipper clients that I help to find homes. And me personally, I don't think that flipping is real estate investing because you're not really investing, it's transactional. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's you're investing your time, you're investing your energy, you're investing your money into doing the transaction. Do you make a profit off of it? Yeah, you make a profit off of it. I kinda count it as investing, but, I get it. It's a transactional thing. Yeah,
Mhm,
you get one, when you finish, you're done with it. So, it's not like it's more like, I don't know, maybe options trading rather than actually investing where you're putting your money in and hoping for passive returns, right? It's really an active position. Like,
yeah,
on my it's funny because you say all these different things, and my second property that, I started the flip project on, my first one, I turned it into a rental, right? But my second one, I got rid of it. And
okay.
um, I bought it sight unseen and did not, ended up with a house with standing water. And
Hmm,
I made 5,000 off of it. It took a long time to finish. And it's exactly like you said, trusting that you got to trust your contractors. It was out of state too. So,
oh,
you
wow.
got to trust your contractors. And, sometimes they're busy and you're like, wait, I need this done by this date. And they're like, no, I can't do that. And so then
Mm,
now you're
mm,
looking for new contractors and you're looking
right,
for new ways to get things done. And flipping is very active. You're very
right,
involved. On
mhm,
almost on a day-to-day basis. Now, could you turn it into a business where you have good contractors and it's more like just investing, like you put 10% into a company that does the flips and then they do the flips for you? I think that that's something like that is possible. Because that's, we do that kind of on the side where we do personal loans to flippers, and then we make a little bit of money off of that and
mhm.
reinvest it into them, and they continue to pay out in interest. And so, could it be could it be real estate investing? I like to say so, but I mean, it may not fit Laura's definition, right?
Well, it
Where
doesn't fit the IRS
passive.
definition either. The IRS does
Okay,
not look at flipping as an investment activity.
yeah,
It's
that's
an
probably
active
true.
it's
That's
a
probably true.
business, it's a business, and you get
Right.
taxed, right? So you gotta
Yeah.
watch out for if you flip it too quick, right? It's gonna be, short-term capital gains. You're looking at what, 25%, something like that, right?
I think it
Anything
depends on the person's tax bracket, right?
anything that you sell less than a year that you've held it, right? It's gonna be
Yeah.
considered short term. Anything over or meets that 1 year mark, you're gonna be treated as long term capital gains, which is a little bit more favorable. But
Mhm.
still, you're gonna have to pay it. So don't forget to factor in your silent business partner, Uncle Sam. So you did mention funding. So the nice part about flipping, potentially, this is where you see all the people, all the gurus selling. Get started in real estate investing, $0 down, none of your money, right? OPM.
Yep.
What's
Yep.
OPM?
Other people's money.
Johnny's
Other
money. So
people
if you want Talk to Johnny. It's about so private money, hard money, right? Those options are out there. But what does it come at? What are those strings?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when you're using other people's money, it could be a lot of different things, right? It could be private money, right? It could be, so let's say there's a group of people that, they have some cash, like let's say they're doctors or lawyers or something like that, and they're busy in their career and they really don't want to, mess with their money, but they want to make more than what the market is providing them, right? They want to make something between like maybe 10 to 20%, which is more guaranteed, right? They might lend it out to someone who's flipping a house, especially if they know that the transaction is going to be good and they have someone qualified to review and underwrite that transaction. Of course, other people's money is loans, right? You go out there with flipping, you have hard money loans, right? And there's some lenders that are hard money lenders that they don't care what your credit score is, right? They'll do business with you as long as they think that the real estate transaction is going to come through. You can show that you have some kind of experience in the construction industry. You can jump in and you can get, I don't know, maybe 90% of it covered. And when I say 90%, I mean the repair costs and the transaction, like the purchase transaction, right? And so, like with Win-Win Financial, we require a specific credit score, right? We expect you to have, a decent credit score. But there are lenders out there that I've worked with in the past where they're like, we don't care. Like, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
what your credit score is.
Yeah,
Come in, we'll look at the transaction. If it looks good, we'll give you the money. Just make sure you get it done. If you don't get it done, we'll take it from you. And we'll either complete it ourselves or sell it to an investor that we know and they'll take care of it. And so
mhm,
know that there's the thing is that there's opportunity for getting money to get the rehab done. But guess what? Interest rates are going to be higher on those, right? You're going to
yep,
see somewhere between 10 to 15% interest rates. Same with the private money, right? You're using private money, sometimes it's going to be more expensive. And then of course, if you decide to go into like a partnership, right, where one of you is the strategist, the other one is the money guy, right? Then you can jump in and you can, use your partner's money and then you guys split the profits at the end. That's what's really, really cool about flipping is that there's definitely an opportunity to make good money. Just get ready to work because it is a lot of work. Like,
yeah.
I don't know anyone who's gone into it and hasn't turned it into a business, right? It's rough. And if you ask them, they'll say, "You know what? I created a construction company because it was too hard just doing flips by myself." Right?
They became a
Um,
GC.
yeah, yeah. It and like I'm gonna be honest, like most investors I know that get into flipping, right? Um, and when I say investors, like they do more than just flipping, right? When they get into flipping, dude, it's they usually end up starting a general contractor company
Mhm.
or they become a builder or like some kind of other business around uh you know uh rehabbing and so on, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the other thing, of course, is timeline, right? You don't have forever when you're using hard money, when you're using private money.
Mhm.
Typically, it's 6 months to be done with it, to return that money, pay it back, or you're going to face severe fines, right?
Mhm.
Fees, things like that. Every single hard money lender has their own rules, their own terms, their own
Mhm.
fees. So you have to, shop, talk to a lot of these people, figure out which one works best for you. There's some who require experience. They don't want to work with newbies, right? And then,
Mhm.
like you said,
Mhm.
there's people who don't care. As long as the deal's good, they'll give you the money, right? Because they're going to get their money back.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, so let's move on. Let's talk about wholesaling real quick. Another topic that some people think is real estate investing. Can you talk real quick? What is wholesaling?
Yeah, so wholesaling is when someone finds a property for sale and then they don't put it on the regular market, but they find other people to buy the property. So, I mean, it's usually it's not licensed people, right? Usually. Sometimes you'll see licensed people do wholesaling. But usually you'll see someone who all they do is reach out to sellers, impossible sellers, and once they get something, they'll put it under contract, and then they'll act like they're gonna buy it, right? While they try to secure someone, the end buyer, right, to buy the property. And so what they'll make is something in between. And I guess my thoughts are is that, um wholesaling isn't like for wholesale, I think I can agree with you just like on the flipping, right? That one is not investing, right? That one is like your job, right? Is to find the deals. And then when you find the deals and you convert them, then you make money, right? And I mean, it's very similar to us realtors, right? Like we find properties, we put it on the market, and we sell it. The only difference is they do it off market.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, basically, right, and I agree. Wholesaling is basically unlicensed sales activity, essentially with highly motivated sellers, most likely properties that most people would not buy on the MLS. So those people who call you, you guys out there with investment properties, or even you own a home, people who call you, hey, do you want a cash offer for your house? I'll buy it within a week, 2 weeks, whatever. They'll throw you a low ball offer, right? Ridiculously low. They'll spam you, they'll call you, they'll send you letters, right? Things like that. Those are wholesalers, right? They'll pretend like they're going to buy the house cash, close quick, things like that. Their security deposit's likely $100. So if they lose $100, no big deal. And then they're going to go turn around once you sign that contract as a seller, they're going to turn around and market that contract, right, to investors, to the true end buyers, right? And so, of course, they're not doing it for free. All right, they're not doing it. There's going to be a profit margin for them, right? And so they decide, what the profit margin is going to be. They market that. An investor comes in, says, "Okay, yep, I like it. I'll buy it," and then, of course, they get paid their little cut for the transaction, right? And then off they go to find the next deal, right? It is a grind, though. It's definitely a grind. It's a business. It's not investing. You are doing a lot of things. To be a successful wholesaler does require a lot of skills. And you have to be good on the phones because you're talking to sellers, right? You're trying to get them to agree with you to sell their home for much lower than what it is going to sell for on the market. And a lot of times, these homes are not going to sell for a good price on the market anyways, because a lot of times these homes are in terrible shape, right? So you're talking about hoarder houses, right? You're talking about houses with foundation issues. Um, Typical houses that most people are not even going to touch, right? So wholesalers do serve a purpose, right? They create inventory, right? And then
Mhm.
a flipper is going to come in and they're going to buy it from the wholesaler, and then they're going to fix it up, make it look all nice and pretty, throw it back in the market, and then of course the city's happy because the city's going to get another big property taxpayer. So
Yeah, and I think like some of the stuff that wholesalers do, because I don't discount wholesalers. I think that they have a place in the market, and the reason I
mhm,
say that is because there are times where you come to us as realtors, and there really isn't anything we can do. Right? We can put it on the market and try to sell it, and we can try to find an investor for it. But if the property just is in like just not in mint condition, it's extremely hard to get it off the market. And wholesalers, they usually have a pocket of people that they can be like, hey, why don't you buy this one? Let's do some creative things, right? Where like, if you come to us and we're like, hey, you got to buy the whole thing, right? You can't just do some weird transaction. Things, the numbers aren't going to work. If you're going to try to work with our lenders, it's not gonna function well. And they got to do something like, I don't know, where they have a little bit of seller finance, they have a third party investor that's involved with some down payment, and then they have the end buyer involved as well, and they're able to just put together this deal, especially for someone that's in a distressed situation. Like, for example, they're going through foreclosure and they don't know what to do, and they're in a really difficult time, and they need the house to move in like 3 days, right? Sometimes wholesalers can take care of it and make it happen. Um, Whereas, and I'm not saying realtors can't do it, because I think we can really do it too, but it takes a really, really, really experienced realtor to do it. And same with a really, really experienced wholesaler. But I think that, the a lot of realtors, we have to abide to laws, rules, and regulations, and sometimes we can't do things that wholesalers can do. And so my thoughts are is that there's a place for them, but yeah, it's very transactional, so it's not quite investing.
Right, right. Yep. And so, actually, in some states, to wholesale, you actually do need a real estate license.
Mhm, mhm.
So, some states you do, some states you don't. It's still the Wild West. Um, all right. So, next thing, the more traditional buy and hold, long-term rental, right? So we both have long-term rentals, right? I started with a single family, but essentially, what it is it's the boring money, right? It's the long
Mhm.
play, right? You're
Yep.
buying a property to put tenants in, and hopefully the rent they're paying you, after all your expenses, your property taxes, your mortgage, things like that. Hopefully, it does cash flow, right? So there is some money there, for you. And so, uh, what do you think, Johnny? What do you think about this one?
I think in today's market, at least here in the Twin Cities, it's really difficult to have cash flow, right? It's really difficult. And just because the prices of homes are so high, the interest rates are also high, the mortgage payments are high, and the amount of rent you can collect is not as high. It makes it really, really challenging. Not saying that there aren't properties that you can do, and that it fits the box. In fact, I saw one just the other day, and um, uh, the house came on the market. It was a distressed property. The bank already owns it, and my thoughts are is that the rent will work, right? The price is right, even under this current interest rate. And I thought about making an offer on it. So my thoughts are is that, can you still find these deals? Yeah, absolutely. Are they a little harder to find currently because of the current market conditions? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I guess the other thing is, do you have a ton of cash, right? If you got like 50% down, you can go in, you'll likely make cash flow. And if you can make cash flow, like, I love buy and hold, because look, you qualify your tenants and you try to do the best to make sure you get the best person in, right? And you do it up front. You make sure they have like, these are my guidelines, right? And I'm very conservative, right? My guidelines are, they have to have at least 2 months of savings after they make the first 2 months of payments, basically the security deposit and the first month's rent, right? In addition to that, they have to have 3 times the rent, right? What that means is, if the rent is $1,000, their income monthly has to be at least $3,000. And then in addition to that, they should have a decent score. So I don't really do any transactions under 640, which is like the type of people that I get, they can actually buy a home. They just don't want to buy a home, right? And so I rent to those guys, and I never have any issues. Like, they'll call me maybe once in a while just to, like, say, hey, like, this thing got old and it kind of died on me, like the dryer's not working or something like that. And I'll just call a maintenance guy to go out, and I don't even really deal with that. I just say, hey, I'll send my maintenance guy, expect them to reach out to you by the end of the day, right? And I love them because you don't have to be super involved, especially if you find the right tenant. Now, what I don't recommend on long term is, dude, do not rent to your family. Just it's just better not. Like, I love my family, and unless I'm willing to let them live there free, I am not renting to them. And that's something that, like, is kind of difficult. But like, what's another thing that's really cool about long term is there's so many different types of financing out there, right? You got you got conventional, you got private investors, you got uh
Commercial.
DSCRs. Yeah, there's so many ways to finance them, and they're so, like, they can be so highly leveraged. Like, my thoughts are is that, look, if I can just get 4% increase in appreciation, it cash flows, right? Meaning, and so when I say cash flows, I don't mean your mortgage payment is $1,000 and your rent is $1,000. Like, that is not cash flowing. Even if it's $1,001, that's not cash flowing, because there's additional expenses like capital expenditures that you got to worry about. Like, dude, the refrigerator is not going to last 30 years, right? You just have to expect it and you have to prepare for that expense. And so you include it in, and as long as you take out all that stuff and you calculate it out, I think that if it cash flows, you should just buy it. And especially if you can highly leverage it, because you're not coming in with any of your own money. Of course, try to keep, like 6 months to 12 months worth of reserves, meaning like monthly payments, just in case the tenant leaves and it's vacant. But dude, I love long term. It's so easy.
Mhm.
It's the only difficult part is, when you have to actually evict someone, and that's super difficult, especially if they're a professional tenant, right? If they're a professional tenant, oh my goodness, like, it is. There was there was this lady that I was kind of helping with, and I wasn't managing her property, but I was just kind of helping her with trying to get the tenant to leave. This dude like threatened everybody, right? And including their neighbors. And I'm just like, oh, it's rough. It's rough.
Wow, okay, that's a wild story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree. I like, long-term rentals. I have them still in my portfolio. I still have my very first one that I bought. And like
Nice.
as you mentioned, one of the things is that it can be very hands off. The last tenant I
Mhm.
had in that specific property, she moved in 7 years ago, 2018. I had never gone back to see the property until she moved out just last year, or actually,
Wow.
it was this
Wow.
year. It was this year back in April. And, after she moved out, I walked through it. I've never been in the property since she moved in. The
That's
place
awesome,
looked
man.
the place looked pretty good. Like, as far as somebody living in a property for 7 years goes,
Mhm.
this place was pretty good. I mean, she never called me to fix anything either, so I was kinda like, "What's going?"
Yeah.
But anyway, I think she fixed some of the stuff herself, but, no, it's a good
That's a good
investment.
tenant, man. That's a really good
I
tenant.
know,
Good
that's
for
like a dream tenant. That's like a dream tenant. She
Yeah.
moved out, she bought her own place, so I was like, "Oh, darn, alright."
Nice.
But anyway, let's see. So long-term rentals, right? So I work with a lot of real estate investors, and something interesting about long-term rentals, like you mentioned, what's the cash flow, right? So whenever I talk to investors that are looking for investment properties, especially long-term rentals, my initial consultation goes like, "Well, what's your goal? How much cash flow are you looking for, right? Do you care about cash flow at all? Period, right? And if you have a certain criteria that it has to be 1% or more, 1% rule for those who don't know, right, is that the gross rent should be at least 1% of the purchase price, right? So if you're buying a $100,000 house, to make it easy, the total rent for that whole building should be at least $1,000, right? 1% of 100K. Um, and you mentioned in your market in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, it's very hard to achieve that. Um, Here in Milwaukee, we can still get 1%.
Nice.
There's a lot of places we can get 1%. We can even get 2%, right? So it all, and this is my initial consultation. Well, what do you want, right? Do you want 1%? Do you want 2%, right? And usually the higher the percentage, the not as nice the neighborhood's going to be, right? So you
Mhm.
do have to realize that there is a give and take. And I have these conversations with people. What's your comfort level, right? Um, are you going to be the one managing it? If you're just going to hire a property manager and you're never going to see the property, you're never going to deal with it, then maybe you're fine with it, right? So it all depends. And then of course there's the conversation about appreciation, right? You talked about appreciation, holding the property long term is going to go up in value. The thing is, if you have a high cash flow, 1%, 2%, the appreciation factor is going to be very low, right? You can have that place for 10 years, it's going to barely go up in appreciation, right? Um, but if you tell me, hey, Laura, I want a little bit of appreciation. I don't care so much if I don't get 1% rule, right? Return. But if I can get like maybe at least $100, $200, net cash flow per month, I'd be happy with that as long as I can get a little bit more appreciation, right? Because I want to hold this place for 5 years or whatever, right? And then sell it. And hopefully I get a good amount back on the appreciation side as well. And so I go, okay, great. Well, then these are the areas that I would recommend you look into, right? So depending on what my investors want, I can tell them, hey, these are the areas we can go to, right? And of course, it also depends on their budget. And then the whole thing about cash flow, right? So many investors are wrapped up in, oh, it doesn't cash flow, I'm not interested, right? But to be quite honest, um, real estate is a store of value, right? If you've got tax problems, you got rich people problems, right? You have too much money and you need to go store that money somewhere. You're not going to buy a place, with high cash flow, probably, right? You want it in safe storage in a nice neighborhood, right? That
Mhm.
maybe you won't, if you decide to rent it out, you're not gonna get cash flow, but what you will get is appreciation, right? And that's kind of why people love the coast markets, right? Because the coastal
Mm.
markets, they have appreciation, right? And then usually the Midwest markets, they have the cash flow. So we kind of see these trends. Um, all right, so we were talking about BRRRR. BRRRR was on our list. We talked about that a little bit. Let's switch to short-term rentals. So this is an area that you have a lot of knowledge in. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so I actually have a lot of knowledge from the lending perspective, right? Since I did a lot of short-term rentals and I have a lot of short-term rental clients, I don't actually have any short-term rentals myself, right? Um, and short-term rentals is kind of like Airbnb, VRBO, kind of vacation. Like some places are vacation based, right? Other places are, in when you need a specific location where you're going to be, people are going to be high traffic volume, right? I have a buddy that, and no names, right? I have a buddy that has a buddy, and they do short-term rentals in prison location, right? Where the properties are close to prisons, so that when their family wants to go see them, they have the ability to travel there. That's same with like there's some Airbnb and VRBO and that kind of stuff in like hospital locations, right?
Mhm.
Where they're not there like, so there's midterm too, right? And but we're talking specifically, like something that's just maybe a couple weeks or less, right? Or month or less, 30 days or less. And when you're looking at that, there's places where people need to go to the hospital and they got to be there for like a week or two, and so and their family wants to come with them and they can't stay at the hospital that long, so they'll get a VRBO or Airbnb. And so with short-term rental, right, it's really, you're really looking at, nights and weeks, for, a specific type of return. And what we do is we look at the individual's ideas, right? Or what I do with my clients, right, is I look at the individual idea on what it is that they want to do. A lot of them want to be in a vacation market, say, for example, a lot of people that I worked with was in the Gatlinburg area, the Kissimmee area, the Crystal Beach and Galveston in Texas area, some of the South Carolina coast. So a lot of vacation places, right? And my thoughts are is that, dude, if you're in a good market and you know how to market and customer service, you can make anywhere between 2 to 3 times the amount that a normal rental would make, right? If it say, for example, you're in a market where you're making, let's say $2,000 a month on rent, that's 24,000. That's what is it? Is that 24,000 a year? And the VRBOs or the Airbnbs there can make like 80,000, right? Which is significantly higher. And so is it worth doing? I think if you like hospitality, absolutely. If you're good at hospitality, you should, like, this is definitely one of those real estate things that you should do. And my hopes is that when you jump in, you're not thinking, oh, like, I'm gonna like, so for long term, what I really like about long term is, dude, if I don't have window coverings, right, or window treatment, my tenants will buy it, right, when they move in. If I don't have furnitures or furnishings inside the property, they're gonna buy it when they move in. But if you have, a short-term rental, you got to furnish everything, right? You got to make sure it looks like a hotel, it sleeps like a hotel. Otherwise, you better be super cheap, right? Like, make sure you bring your sleeping bag or something. Where, people rent out tents on Airbnb, but short-term rental, it really is, buying real estate and then turning it into kind of a hospitality resort location if possible. And I think it works really well. So, I mean, I know you do short-term rentals, right? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I do operate two Airbnbs. One is in Crystal Beach, Texas, which is right by the Gulf of Mexico, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Minute walk to the beach, things like that. Pretty
Gulf of
nice.
America.
Yeah, the new name, right? Um, but yeah, it's so that's a vacation market, right? Where you're gonna have people who come there. It's very seasonal, right? So something to understand too is that if you're gonna buy in a vacation market, you have to understand that it's gonna be seasonal.
Mhm,
Um, and so the other type of market that you mentioned is the urban market. So we do have another Airbnb right in the city of Milwaukee or West Dallas, close enough to Milwaukee. But it's urban market, urban environment, right? So the type of people who we get there, the type of guests that visit Milwaukee, they come for sports, the Brewers, right? They come watch the Brewers, they come to our state fair. We are within 5-minute driving to the Brewer Stadium, to the Buck Stadium, right? Arena, whatever. Um, so location is very important on the type of people that you want to attract to stay at your Airbnb, right? Um, you could also market to corporate, right? Corporate type of people who are temporarily on assignment, or the new popular things, digital nomads, right? So those type of people who might want to live in your place for about a month or whatever, and then go to the next place, right? Um, but yeah, I love short term rental. Like you said, you could potentially make two x, 3x what you could
mhm,
in versus a long term rental, and it is very possible. The cool thing is that it's kind of like the pricing is on demand as well. If there's no events going on in our city of Milwaukee here, right, our rent's going to be very low. But if there's a Harley Fest all of a sudden for a weekend and you get all these Harley motorcycle riders in town, we have a garage, right? We have amenities for them, right? Safe places, sort of bikes, things like that. One weekend, we could end up making, a grand, right? In one
mm,
weekend. That
mhm.
that's that would normally be like the whole month's rent, if we did long term. So it's very, you could potentially make out really good. The cons, some people think about right away. Oh, it's saturated. Oh, there's Airbnbs everywhere. Oh, so what? Right? It, like you said, if you're good at how you stand out, how you decorate your place, um, right? You got to make your place stand out. And when people like see your listing on Airbnb, they're going to stop and they're going to look at your listing and be like, yes, that's where I want to stay. Right. If you don't stand out from anybody else, then good luck. Right. So let's talk about funding Airbnbs. And that's what you used to do, right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. A lot of my clients use DSCR loans, right? And that the coolest thing is that even if if your property is a single family, right, and in long term it's not going to work, if you convert it to a short term rental, the likelihood is that it's going to work. And so because you can produce so much more income, right? And DSCR meaning debt service coverage ratio, which means your monthly income, right? Your gross monthly income has to be higher than your monthly principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and HOA dues. And so as long as it's larger than that, you can buy it as long as you have 20% down, which is phenomenal. Like people are picking up DSCR loans and short-term rentals like nonstop in the like 2021, 2022. It was insane because there's an unlimited amount of loans you can actually obtain, where like you can do conventional too, right? And you can do a vacation loan if you plan on vacationing there a certain time, a certain portion of time throughout the year, right? And of course, it has to be pretty like decent. Like you have to be there, like say for example, 15 plus days out of the year. And if you're vacationing that much, it's a vacation home. You can do 90%. And if you decide you want to rent it while you're not there for like half a year, totally cool, right? Totally something that you can do. Or you can do a 85%, right, conventional loan. Or if you want to put 20% down on a conventional loan, you can definitely do that too, but you're limited on the amount of investments you can have with conventional loans. So my recommendation is talk to a loan officer. And then, of course, there are private institutions for private funding that helps with short-term rentals. You could even get a commercial loan, or there's plenty of room to to work with short-term rentals. You just have to be in a market where short-term rentals are prominent and will work, and where it's not illegal to do short-term rentals. Like if
Yes.
you come and you want to get financing for a short-term rental and it's in a city that does not allow it, which for example, there were some, like I had some clients in California that were doing short-term rentals in California, and they were doing some arbitrages in California. And guess what? All of a sudden, that city decides, hey, we're not allowing short-term rentals anymore. Boom, your business is gone, right?
Yep.
So just when you're looking for it, if you're a brand new investor or if you're new to short-term rentals, read the guidelines, read the laws, make sure you know what the city allows or don't allow, and then we can take it from there.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's also a reason why a lot of, people who invest in Airbnbs, short-term rentals, they specifically choose vacation markets, right?
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
those economies, they run on vacations, right?
mhm, mhm,
So they're gonna be allowed, right? So we're talking places like Disney,
mhm,
Gatlinburg, the Smoky Mountains, right? That's super popular.
mhm.
Prices went through the roof. I know because I was trying to buy one. So, yeah.
All the beach
Uh,
areas too, all the
yeah,
beach
beach areas
areas.
too. Yep,
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
Yep, we tried Florida too, and it was rough. We almost got a house in Miami area. Um, that would have been
Nice,
awesome. It would have been on the canal, all this stuff. But
nice.
yeah, yeah, it would have been nice. We were like seconds. Oh well. All right. And the big thing about short-term rentals that we didn't mention is taxes, right?
Right,
Um, there's a crazy tax thing that
depreciation.
yes, that you could take advantage of. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. We're gonna have a expert um talk to us about that strategy. So we can dive into that later. Next thing we're going to go to is something that's called syndication, right?
Mhm.
So a little bit more complicated. Can you share a little bit about that on a high level?
Yeah, so I actually haven't been involved in a syndication. I know you have, but what I do know about it is that syndications are where people, uh, usually investors who have, and when I hear syndications, usually it's something that's regulated by the SEC, right?
Mhm.
And when it's regulated like that, and you're an investor, you have to be a qualified investor, right? Which means you have to have so much assets. Your income has, or maybe your income has to be so high, and if you don't have it, you actually can't get involved in the syndication. Now, these days, there's been syndications that are, I would say, crowdfunded.
Mhm. Yep.
And so there's other things out there, right? So like limited partnerships, but for the most part, my thoughts are when I hear syndication, I'm thinking about accredited investors, and I'm thinking about SEC regulations. I'm thinking about, like a fund, right? Like
Mhm.
a fund that's being managed by a group of people. They're going to purchase large, like huge commercial properties, apartment complexes. Like my thoughts are is downtown buildings, right? Any major city that you go to and you see downtown buildings, I that's what makes me think of syndication, and so that's what I know about it. So why don't you fill us in with your experience?
Yeah, yeah. So, syndication, essentially, like you said, right? A bunch of investors pooling their money together to buy either a large commercial asset, apartment building, a hotel, or even car washes. Car washes are the new craze.
Mhm,
Lots of
mhm.
lots of people are building those up. They're everywhere. Storage units too, right? So there's you can pretty much put a syndication to do anything really. Um, I think what I heard in the past that syndication started, that's how they fund movies in Hollywood, right? Having investors put money together to fund a movie, right? But so you have two groups when you're involved in a syndication. One is going to be uh, the GP, general partners, right? Those are the people who run the show. And then you have the LP, which is limited partners. So these are the people who they're just there to put the money in, right? They don't run anything. It's the passive people, right? So it's called mailbox money, essentially. So the type of people who do syndications are the people who have a lot of money, but maybe not a lot of time to do investing, right? And they absolutely don't want to do anything, right? Um, so even less work than buy and hold, right? So basically, all you do is put your money in, and there's a whole marketing package, numbers that you're expected to hit on returns, things like that. Um, but the cons are that your money has to stay in the fund for X amount of years, depends on the investment. Usually anywhere from 3 to 5 years, could be more, could be less. But you cannot take your money out. Uh, you know, it's very hard to take your money out if you have a crisis and you need your money back. Um, the amounts that you put in can vary, right? Like you mentioned, if you're going to do a crowdfunding thing, that's a different type of syndication. I think that's like a class A or whatever.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
it's a You have to pay a lot of money to get that set up where you can actually publicly advertise, and you can take something like $1,000 or whatever, right? There's
Yeah,
different types.
I think I did my research, right? And,
Mhm.
to start a syndication, like,
Yeah,
if you're hiring an attorney to set all this up and you're not an attorney yourself, it could be upwards of $20,000,
yeah,
right? So
that's accurate. Yep, that's accurate. Yep. So there's different types of syndications, right? Like you mentioned, if if you're only going to take accredited investors only, there is a certain type of syndication that would allow you just to do that. But if you only do that, then it also allows you to publicly advertise. So now
mm,
you can publicly advertise to anybody, right? Um, but if you're going to take non-accredited investors, right, based on the fact that you have an existing relationship. So this is the key, that you have to have already known them. You didn't meet them through public advertisement, right? You have to prove it in case you ever get, investigated, things like that. But basically, you are self-certifying yourself as a person who knows what they're doing, as an investor who understands that they may lose money. You sign off on that, and sign off that you have an existing relationship with the GP. Go ahead, put your money in, and you're in, right? You're in the deal, right? Um, so that's basically how it works. I've done one where I was the LP, um, and it went pretty well. We made some money, which is good. We bought a 100 unit apartment complex in Dallas area. Held it for
nice.
about 3 years through COVID, which was kind of scary, right?
Nice.
We should have probably sold it. We should probably held on to a little bit longer, but we
Okay.
sold it right after kind of COVID. We got out of COVID. We did make money though, so that was the positive. So
Yeah.
good experience. Would I do it again? Maybe not. Maybe not. All depends. All depends.
Maybe
Would
if
I?
you're running the syndication.
Well, that was the goal, right? The goal was to learn about syndication and
Mhm,
see if I wanted to eventually become a GP and run the show, right? But
yeah.
honestly, it's a lot of freaking work. It's you're reporting to all investors. I think we had
Mhm.
about 40 investors in our syndication. You're reporting to them, right? And so there's a lot of people to check in with, right? And
Mhm.
depending on who you decide who gets into your deal, I mean, if they're a pain in the butt and they're constantly asking you for updates and they're not even doing anything, well, it's gonna be a nightmare for you, right? But yeah, so I don't know. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of moving pieces as well. To be a GP, there's a lot of requirements. You have to have the net worth, the liquidity, right? Um, Meaning that you have to actually have enough net worth as the building you're buying, right? So if you're buying a $5 million property, you better have that liquidity to your name, right? And if you don't, then that's where you have to go hire partners, right? You have to go find the partners that do, so they fulfill a certain purpose, right? And you might have partners where you split it up. One is doing the crowdfunding or the fundraising, right? They're the person who is really good at networking. They have a great network that people, right? They're good talkers, right? They can raise the funds. And then you might have the person who is the asset manager, right? The person who is running the actual investment property, making sure that the money, the returns are going well. So you divide kind of, you divide and conquer, right? You have to have different
Mhm.
partners to serve different purposes, right?
Mhm.
So you could potentially have two, three, four, five, whatever, right? It all depends on how you want to set it up. Um, so yeah, syndication is very interesting. But right now with um, the current interest rates, the market environment, things like that, the deals really aren't penciling out, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but that's a little bit too much info. But well, if somebody wants to learn about that, we could do a future episode. I know a ton of syndicators out there who are doing well. We could definitely bring them on and have them talk about their deals, how they set up and things like that,
Yeah,
right?
I know a couple too. So,
Yeah,
yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. We're kind of at the end of the hour, and there's definitely other things that there's so many different ways to invest in real estate, right? There really is. But I want to say, I just want to put a full disclosure out there. Hey guys, when you're investing, you're risking that money, right? And so in every single one of these transactions that we just talked about, or every single one of these type of investments that we talked about, you could lose money, right? And I'm not trying to scare you, because the honest truth is I've made really good money. If it wasn't for real estate investing, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today. I've made really good money in it. I'm very conservative at what I do, but if you're the type that goes all in and jumps in on a deal that you haven't vetted, you could lose a ton of money. So make sure you do your research, right? Make sure you know what it is you're getting yourself into, and if you don't, talk to an expert, right? But to wrap this up, I just wanted to go over it with Laura. What do you think is the easiest strategy, dude? Like, which one of these is the easiest, and then which one is the most
yeah.
complicated one?
So actually, there's one we didn't talk about, and that's probably the easiest one. So when a lot of brand new investors come talk to us, right, and they're like, "Hey, I want to get started in real estate investing, right? How do I do that with the least amount of money out of my pocket?" Well, the one that we bring up the most is called house hacking, right? And so it's
Mhm.
just a fancy term, right? Everything's a hack these days, but essentially, all you're doing is buying a duplex or a multifamily, 2 to 4, or yeah, you could even do it with a single family if you really wanted to, right? There's a guy we know
Mhm.
that was living in his garage and renting out all the bedrooms in his house. Um, but
Nice. That's the way to do it. If you're
yeah,
gonna start brand new.
yeah, shout out to Jim. I know Jim's probably watching. But anyway, um, yeah, it's essentially you're buying a duplex, multifamily, which is considered residential, right? All the way up to 4 units is considered residential, right? And you live in one unit, right? You can get a conventional loan, you can get an FHA loan, right? FHA is going to be 3.5% down. Conventional could be 3 to 5%. Um, but because you're living there, you're going to have the least amount of down payment, right? And so now you
Mhm.
can acquire a property, you can get tenants in, they're going to help pay your mortgage, right? And initially at first, they're probably only going to cover half your mortgage. That'll be sufficient, right? If you can get in a house, get some of your expenses paid for, right? That's great. And then you only have to live there a year, right? A year minimum. You can repeat this strategy again. You can go and buy another duplex and do it again. And guess what? When you move out, you rent out your other unit. Now, hopefully, you're cash flowing right. Um, and you do it right a couple times, you're going to be set. What do you think? Anything else? Anything
No,
easier?
I think that, there's ways to make things easier by, finding the right partners, right? But I think that all of them requires doing homework, right? And
Mhm, mhm.
even house hacking. I think house hacking is probably one of the safest routes, right?
Yep, yep.
Um, just because you're gonna need to live somewhere, and is if you're paying for one side and they're paying for the other, and let's say, for example, their rent is, let's say the monthly payment is $3,000 and they're paying you 2,000 and you're paying 1,000. That's a discount on your mortgage, right? And
Heck
you're
yeah.
technically, yeah, investing at that point. Now, if you can pay the whole entire mortgage and you're getting that money too, dude, more power to you. I think that that's probably the way to do it. Pay off that, pay down that item fast, or as fast as possible, so you can use the equity to buy another one.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So
yeah,
I'm actually helping a client do this, right? He
nice.
reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, you know what? I own a single family house right now, but I want to get started in real estate investing. I want to have something, right? I want to build my wealth. How should I do it?" Right. So I suggested the idea to him. He's like, "Okay, yes, I like that idea." Right. My job is not to convince him to do it. I'm just helping him with resources and educating him, and then it's his decision on what he wants to do, what he's comfortable with. Right.
Mhm,
So we
mhm.
sold his house. Step one, sold his house. He made a ton of money, profit. Um, Now we're in the middle of step two. We have a duplex, really nice, side by side, under contract, and hopefully we close at the end of October here. And then he's gonna evict both tenants. He's gonna buy vacant, and then he's gonna fix up both units, make it really nice, and then that way he can maximize the rents, and then live in one unit, rent out the other, maybe live there a year and do it again once he has enough down payment to do it to repeat, right? And so that's really cool. Um, the next question: what's the most complicated? What do you think?
Um, so for me, it's a time constraint thing, right? And I think if I had a team running all of these things, it'd be fine. But uh, for me, it'd probably be um the syndication is very, like, I think, pretty complicated because you got to do all these reportings, right?
Hmm.
And my thoughts are is that syndications are not for newbies, right? So until you get your feet wet, or until you've met team members that you trust that can do a syndication, I wouldn't recommend something like that. But if you're a solo investor, right? If you're a solo investor, I would say short-term rental is actually pretty difficult. Like, um from an aspect of, you have to know that it's not passive, right? um you got to dedicate at least 2 hours a day or something like that to answering questions, to making sure that your client is going to be able to come and access the building, right? I've heard of horror stories where someone shows up at midnight, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they're trying to get into the Airbnb, and the access code is not working, and the client's super upset because you didn't have a backup plan because you fell asleep, right? Or because it's midnight, so of course you're gonna be asleep. But
Oh,
um,
even if you were awake and you didn't have a backup key that was hidden somewhere, right, or the lockbox or something
stop,
like that,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh
Man,
man, that's
that's
rough.
it can be disastrous, but I think
Hmm.
if done right, right? If done right, there's systems for everything. I think, you
Yep,
know, I I don't look at the complications. My thoughts is that, try not to look at the complications too much, because if you overanalyze, you never actually move. And
that's
so
true. That's true.
just go ahead and jump into one of them, pick one that you think might fit your personality, and then just go for it. Even if it's complicated, work through it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I actually kind of agree with you. I mean, if we put out syndication, right? Because syndication is really high level investing. You're talking
Mhm,
about SEC regulations, all that stuff.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, the next most complicated is probably STRs, right? Short term rental, because like you said, you are operating a hotel, right? A
mhm.
mini hotel. You're in the hospitality business. right? You're no longer kicking back, feet up, and not dealing with your tenant until they call you about the toilet breaking, right? Um,
Mhm.
Short-term rental is a complete different game. You have to be nice to people. You have to get good reviews, right? Reviews are everything, right? Just like when
It
you go to
is.
Amazon and you buy something, right? Or you look on Google reviews. Oh, 4 stars, nah. 3 stars, definitely no. Right?
If you're not and you may not be on the first 2 pages, right?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, man, it's rough, right? And that's where you have to stand out, and,
Yeah.
it is customer service game. You have to put on your customer service voice, right? You can't just respond to them like, other you want them to make their experience good, so they leave you a good review
Mhm.
so that other people will stay with you, right? So yeah, I completely agree. Then the last question, what is the best ROI, return on investment, in your opinion here? What's your thought?
My thought is, the infinite ROI, right? Where you don't use any of your money, you go into the transaction and you just make money off of it, right? And then you just make money off of it for the rest of your life. And I think that that's probably the best way to do it. But if you're talking specific, rate of return, for I think there's probably going to be different ones for each type of investment. And so if we're talking about long term, right, my thoughts are you should at least net, right? Net, this is after expenses, like 200 bucks on each door for long term. um you should and that, like burr fits into that, right? The burr method. You should at least net 200 bucks. If you're talking about short-term rental, I think like you should at least net 10,000 a year, because if you're not, it is not worth the time to get involved with the short-term rental. And I might even say 20,000 a year for it to be worth it. But it depends on where you are, right? Because if you have
Yeah.
four of them and your job currently only pays you 40,000, and you have four of them and you're netting, $10,000 on each, and you can write off depreciation, dude, you're doing better than your $40,000 job a year, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then, the rest, I think syndication is going to depend on the type of transaction, because that covers so many different things. But yeah, like my thoughts are, if you're going to do a house hacking, and you're gonna live in the garage and rent out the rest of your house, dude, if you make 100 bucks a door and you got 4 doors, that's $400 a month. um it adds up. It adds up. So,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
yeah, infinite ROI is what I believe. And when I say infinite, that means you're not using your own money, right? Um, but what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the infinite thing is definitely next level, right? Essentially, you could look at it as like you put some money in, and then you got some profit back, and then you take your money out. Now you're playing with the
Mhm.
house's money, right? So,
Mhm.
so that's kind of where we're going with the infinite, right? If you're not following along, so
That Burr
um,
method.
that Burr method, right, right. So the
Yeah.
Burr method could totally be the way to go to how to get that right.
Mhm.
And so but I think I do like short-term rentals. And even like you said, I look at it in the standpoint of tax savings, right? And again, we're going to talk about
Mhm.
this in the next episode, where we're going to have our tax expert here, because we're not CPAs. um and but this guy, he teaches people how to do this, right? And so this is his full-time gig. He's going to teach you how to utilize short-term rentals and bonus depreciation to offset your active income, right? So this is going to be super powerful stuff. So even if you're not necessarily making any money, you could, if you have a money problem, where it's tax problem really, could
Mhm.
save you huge, right?
Yeah,
um,
if you're making a W-2 over, 150,000 a year, I think you
mhm.
definitely wanna listen to this next podcast that we have coming.
Yeah, yeah. So, yep, that's pretty much it for today's episode of the Ninja Wealth Exchange. So we hope that it was educational, informational, maybe a little bit entertaining. Um, but as you can see, there's a whole lot of options when it comes to real estate investing. Right? There's no one size fits all. There's pros and cons to each one of these. There's risk factors involved, and really, when it comes down to it, what's your goal? right?
Mhm.
What's your goal? What's your comfort level? What's your budget, right? And you talk to us. If you need help, we can kind of help direct which way you should probably go, or you can make that decision for yourself. So that's it. If you found value in this episode, make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, things like that. So you stay notified of future videos just like this one. So we'll see you same time, same place next week. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. See you guys.